Hey, greetings and salutations. A week ago, the boys and I went on a day trip to Titus Canyon and Leadfield and on into Death Valley. Let's just say we had a little bit of excitement there that was unplanned and unforeseen, but it could have ended a lot worse. Don't worry about it. I overheated a little bit. Huh? Because I overheated.
When's it going to stop?
It'll stop when it stops. One of the things that taught me was that I really wasn't prepared adequately. One of the things I determined to do was to put together a couple of checklists so that the likelihood of that ever happening again is exponentially lower. There were a couple of mistakes that I made before we went on that trip. One was I didn't do adequate vehicle prep before the trip, and two, I didn't bring enough stuff, provisions, tools, stuff like that in the event something went wrong. And one of the things that I've learned in my 54 years is that Murphy's the son of a bitch, and if anything can go wrong, it usually will. You're preparing for the worst and you expect the best. Having that mindset probably goes a long way to mitigating any of these problems. The first thing I should have done was the day before the trip, I should have got underneath this thing and nut and bolted the entire suspension. Anytime that you modify the suspension on a vehicle, especially an off-road vehicle that sees the kind of abuse that this vehicle sees, probably should get underneath there at least once a month and make sure all the nuts and bolts are tight. If I'd have done that the day before we went on that trip, my cross member wouldn't have fallen off. So I haven't worked on that yet, but I am going to put it together a pre-trip checklist, things that I should do before every trip so that I can rule out as many of the mechanical issues that may arise as a result of beating the hell out of these things out on the trail. The second thing I didn't do is I didn't prepare by bringing in enough tools and equipment. Fortunately, I didn't have anything other than a bolt fall out and a little bit of overheating, so I did bring in some fluids. And I did have some tools. What I bring with me, I carry in this 50 cal can. But I thought I would put together a list of items that for me are going to be in my vehicle before every off-road adventure trip. Of course, that list can be expanded upon based on the length of the trip and the destination. A lot of what you're going to bring is going to be trip specific, so none of this is set in stone, but what I'm putting together is a baseline kit of things that are always going to be in this vehicle when we go off in an off-road adventure. This is a Jeep Cherokee Sport, if you couldn't tell. My other off-road vehicle, the one that I had before this, was a full-size square body Suburban. That was a little bit bigger vehicle. I could carry more stuff. This is pretty small. This is a pretty diminutive vehicle when it comes to 5 people and a dog. Whatever you do bring, you want to be able to get it as compact as possible so that you're not like all packed in like sardines. That doesn't make for a good trip anyway. But there's only a few things that are going to leave you stranded out on the trail. And the most common things, well, you know, you could have a catastrophic engine failure. That'll leave you stranded for sure. If your vehicle's in relatively good mechanical condition, the odds of that happening are pretty low. But there are things that are, I would consider consumable items that do wear out, especially in harsh environments like out here in the southern Nevada desert. Things like tires and serpentine belt, hoses. Always keep a spare fan belt in your vehicle or serpentine belt. Tires, I have a full-size spare here. This is not the same size as the tires that are on this, but the circumference of the tire is pretty close. If I puncture a tire, I have a plug kit. And if I puncture a tire, I'll just plug it. But if you have a catastrophic tire failure and you separate the tread, or it blows out, or you puncture the sidewall, you got a spare tire? You better, or you're gonna be walking. Shh, don't tell my wife. Well, I took this thing out of my wife's car. Now, a lot of new cars don't have spare tires anymore. They just come with this. This particular model also has a fix a flat thing in here. I've already used it. Besides, it's expired. This is just a temporary deal until I can afford to get a good air compressor. But if you're out and about, say, I don't know, in Death Valley, and you get a flat, you need to pump up your tire, that's better than blowing into the valve stem. Just saying. Hoses, if you have room to carry an extra radiator hose, upper and lower radiator hose, that might not be a bad idea, but at least carry something like Flex Seal tape. You see I have a paracord bracelet, and this has about 8 feet of paracord in it, and I had one of these that actually got me home. I was 20 miles from home, and I had an upper radiator hose failure. It had a split in it from bouncing against the alternator, and I found a smooth plastic bottle out in the desert, an iced tea bottle I think it was. I cut the ends off and I made a plastic sleeve that I wrapped tight around the radiator hose, and I took my paracord bracelet apart and tied that paracord all the way around that, and then put some more water in the system, let it pressurize, and that sealed everything off, and it got me home. So I have a way to patch a hose puncture. Carry some extra, the radiator hose clamps. Vital fluids like motor oil, transmission fluid, power steering fluid, and water. Let me show you what I carry with me. Before every trip, I do check the fluids. I check the oil, I check the power steering fluid, I check the transmission fluid, and the radiator, check the coolant level before I leave. And then I bring with me a gallon of antifreeze or water. This is half full. I got a couple quarts of motor oil. I got a couple quarts of transmission fluid. And this is just some old SA30, which will work in a pinch. Out here, it's a good idea to bring as much water as you can fit in your vehicle. So I've always carry a cooler full of water. And I bring my 72-hour bag, my bug out bag, and this has a 2-liter water bladder in it. And then we usually carry a 2-gallon cooler jug for when the dog's with us. So we have roughly at any given time, we're about 4 gallons of extra water, not including the antifreeze that we bring with us. Extra fuel. I don't have provisions to carry extra fuel at this point in time. That might not be a bad idea. Having 2 to 5 extra gallons of fuel with you. Maybe you don't need it, but somebody that you're with may run low on fuel. But like I said, I don't have provisions for extra fuel at this point in time. Maybe in the future. I have a small tool kit here with sockets, wrenches. If I had to, I could probably change a U-joint. Probably should bring a hammer with me. I'm going to add a hammer to my tool kit. I'm going to put together a list of tools that I need to have with me also. But having a rudimentary hand tool kit with you to be able to do things like change out a U-joint, change your throttle position sensor, change your tires, things like that. So aside from the basic belts, hoses, and fluid leaks, what else can leave you stranded on the trail? Well, that's going to depend largely on your vehicle, and if you have an older vehicle like I do, my vehicle is 300,000 miles and 20 years old. So the odds of something happening to my vehicle are exponentially higher than someone who's driving like a 2019 Wrangler. That 2019 Wrangler is too new for those vehicle-specific problems to arise that you can plan for. This rig, though, 98 Jeep Cherokee Sport. Actually, this one's a classic. This has some known problems that that occur. Things that will leave you stranded out in the trail. Things like a crankshaft position sensor, which is located on the bell housing of the transmission on the driver's side. It's kind of a pain in the ass to get to and to change out on the trail, but having an extra one is the difference between your vehicle running and not. A throttle position sensor, while it may not leave you stranded on the trail, it certainly is going to make drivability an issue. If you ever had a throttle position sensor fail on you, then you know what I'm talking about. So have an extra one of those. At this point in time, I don't have an extra ECU, but that might be a good idea. And I think an ECU for this car, a reman, I can get for around 150 bucks. I've been keeping my eyes open for one at the pick apart. I can pick one up there for 40 bucks. And then if you happen to find one at the junkyard, you buy it, bring it home immediately, put it in your rig, check to make sure it's good. If it is, leave it in the vehicle. Take the one that's in your vehicle. If it's good, take that out and use that as your spare. Depending how hard you wheel, I overland. I don't rock climb, but my friend Martin, he does more rock climbing than overlanding. So, having a spare set of U-joints might be a good idea to carry with you, just in the event that you break one. And having, just basic things like zip ties and duct tape. Now I'm thinking about it. Might be a good idea to check it. Here's the thing about duct tape. Usually, it's one of those things that doesn't cost a lot of money, but it can save you a lot of time. This actually came with the vehicle. I didn't buy this. And 9/21/17, so it's a couple years old. The problem with this is good duct tape, so I'll leave it in the vehicle. This probably should be part of your checklist. If you're going to carry duct tape, check it to make sure the adhesive's still good. Out here in the desert Southwest, heat will destroy the adhesive, and there's nothing worse than, oh, I got some duct tape, and you go to use it and the adhesive is completely baked. But zip ties are a good thing to have in your toolkit too. I bring a coffee can with me because I pick up people's trash. Now in my bug out bag, I put I got a lot of flashlights, I got knives, I've got paracord, I got ranger bands, I got headlamps, batteries. Always carry extra batteries. In fact, I need this one. And a first aid kit. Mine's on my day pack. It's got bandages, aspirin, a tourniquet, all that kind of stuff. No list is complete without provisions. Even if it's just a day trip, if you're gonna be out for 4 or 5 hours, you probably want to snack on something. So bring some extra food. When we do go off-roading, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm just assuming that we're going to spend the night. So depending on what time of year it is, in the summertime it's not so bad because it doesn't get that cold at night. But we're coming into the late fall, coming into this is the end of November at the time of this filming, and it's beautiful now. The sun's out. It's a little low on the horizon. It's probably 75 degrees or so, but tonight it's going to get cold, and we've had rain earlier this week. There's going to be frost, so it's going to get cold enough to suffer from hypothermia. If you operate on the assumption that you may have to spend the night, then you want to bring some extra clothes. Being this is such a confined space, 5 people in this vehicle will keep it relatively warm just with body heat, but keeping yourself warm is going to require caloric intake. So you bring some extra food, some snacks, plenty of water, and maybe a way to build a fire. I carry I got big lighters in my pack here. I've got a ferro rod. I can start a fire relatively easy. So extra food, water, cold weather gear. And I think the best thing you can do if you're going to go on an overlanding trip, if you know that you're going to be out of touch, meaning that if you're going to be out of cell service, you're going to be out where you're unplugged from the rest of the world, let somebody know where you're going and formulate a plan. What I do sometimes is I'll shoot my buddy Martin a text. I'll give him GPS coordinates where we're going. I tell him, okay, I'm going to be back by 7 o'clock. If you don't hear from me by 8, text me or call me. If I don't respond within an hour, call the authorities because we're lost or broke down. And then if you do break down, I think the worst thing you can do is start walking, especially out here, because you could literally walk into a hole and they'll never find you. So having flashlights will enable you to see your immediate surroundings and help you maybe fix your vehicle if it's fixable, but it'll also help you signal. So if you do break down and you've let somebody know where you're at, there's a plan in place, stick to the plan. Stay with the vehicle. Don't go anywhere. That's my recommendation. Probably the smartest thing you do, and I can't afford to do it right now, is to carry with you an emergency locator beacon. And these should only be used in a life-threatening situation. And they're not going to come out, and if you're stuck, they're not going to come out and pull your vehicle out. They're going to come and get you, and you can go back later and get your stuff. But if it's a life and death situation, it's probably a good idea. I think you can get into an emergency locator beacon on the low end for around $250, and then you can actually buy them where you can communicate with people for several $100s or $1,000 or something like that. Or you can just go buy yourself a satellite phone. That gets really expensive. So know your limitations, know your vehicle's limitations, and don't exceed them, especially when you got your family with you. It's one thing if it's just you, but when you got your little kids and your wife with you, the last thing you want to do is end up upside down in kittywampus out in BFE, maybe 50 or 60 miles from civilization, outside of cell service, and there's no way to contact anybody. So to summarize, before you leave, make sure that your vehicle's in top operating condition. If you have to do any preventive maintenance, do it before you go. Oil changes, that kind of thing, do it before you go. Check everything: belts, hoses, tires, suspension. Go ahead and get underneath it and nut and bolt your suspension. Make sure everything's tight. And then check your fluid levels, make sure everything is topped off. And then make sure that you have everything that's on your checklist. Put together your own checklist and make sure that everything that's on that checklist is in your vehicle before you leave the driveway. Hopefully you don't need to use any of the tools and you're just taking them with you. That's fine. But it's like one of those, it's like carrying a gun. You hope to God you don't ever need it, but if you ever do need it, you're damn glad you got it. So one more thing you should probably carry with you is some sort of code reader. You want to know why your check engine light's on, or you want to clear a code, you got to have one of these. This one's from Harbor Freight. I don't even think they make this one anymore. I'll put a link in the description to some of this stuff that you can get on Amazon. They don't cost that much. It's a simple code reader. One other thing I don't ever leave home without is one of these portable jump packs. You happen to leave a dome light on or something, you need a little extra push to get your car started. These things are priceless. Actually, they're not priceless. They cost somewhere between $50 and $100 depending on the size. But this also has USB ports on it, so you can charge like your phone, flashlight, that kind of thing. It's a battery pack. That's all I got today. If you have anything to add, if you think there's anything that I should add to my checklist, comment in the comment section. I'd appreciate that immensely. And if you haven't done so yet, underneath this window is a button that says subscribe. Click that and the bell icon right next to it so you can be notified of future uploads. If you like this video, smash that like button and share this video with your vast social media network. And as always, until next time, you have fun, stay safe, shoot straight, keep your powder dry, and have a splendid day. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye now. That's cool. It's not a squirrel, but it's the next best thing. This is why we can't have nice things. I've got boys.